Hello, welcome to the Multiple Martial Arts Podcast, where we explore the intersections between martial arts, society, and culture. I'm Elliot.
I'm Danny.
And Danny, what is on your mind? What's been going on in the martial arts Danny world?
Well, I have been keeping track, as always, of like jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, Shotokan karate, Skrima, you name it. I'm trying to figure out who's talking about it. What are they teaching? I've been enjoying, sadly, the fake martial art videos, the ones where people kind of talk about martial artists that can like repel a fighter by just looking at them or screaming and they bounce off. And
It's not sadly, it's okay. It's fun. It's entertaining. I like it. Like a Mick Dojo. Is that one of the things you watch?
yes, but I feel bad because of the way that people invest in it. Like some of these videos, they're funny, but I realize like what happens if you've been training with this person for 10 years? It's not as
Sad.
funny then.
No, it's not funny. I see it. I see it. I'm like, wow, there's like these, few dozen guys in like a huge like gymnasium, and they're not doing good. It's ridiculous, and I feel sad. Like I laugh when I see those videos, but I also feel bad that some people are wasting their money and time and being misled. It's really unfortunate.
And it comes to it comes to this conversation that I was hoping we could have today, which is, um, I think it's been a running kind of subtext to our conversations, which have been like, why do we train? And the answer is very varied. People train for different reasons, but one of the most persistent, um, like reasons is we train to defend ourselves. And that got me thinking about like these fake martial artists and how unfortunate it is to train on something that is not going to help you. But then it also led me to question, like, is there a difference in training out of fear versus training because it's a good discipline and you want to train in something that is effective, but you're not training out of fear? And maybe there's other ways to kind of frame the conversation. So I'd appreciate if you kind of like how you can kind of think about it, but maybe that's a topic we could address today.
So training out of fear versus out of discipline. So fear of, like you had mentioned, maybe getting beat up or some sort of, other situation. But would the person would have to accept the discipline of martial arts and, so wouldn't it be combined a little bit? Or you're added the added aspect of, say some people just want the discipline and want the art versus other people who just are just kind of training for their lives a little bit. I'm not.
I don't know. I think it helps to think about how we as individuals walk into a dojo for the first time or a boxing gym. And if you think about it, a lot of us, at least for me, I entered it, I think, out of like the movies. I just thought it was really cool. My first karate class, Okinawan style, came because my friend in junior high, Edgar, was training. And Edgar was a guy that didn't need training. He was probably like in middle school, already 6 feet tall. And I was like the shortest little kid in all of junior high. And that was my friend. And he was like, you got to come with me. I'm doing karate. And I think he invited me to see him in a tournament. And then I even got to see him use it in school. And it was like, oh my goodness, I want to do that. And it was weird because it was just like in the movies. Like there used to be this tunnel that like you would go through and the older kids would be hiding there and they would like punch and kick you. And Edgar passes through it. And in my memory, he does amazing stuff, like he does a side kick, backspin, back fist, and bang, they all fall. But it probably wasn't like that. But I was like, whoa, that's amazing. I want to do that. Anyway, that led me to wanting to follow this dude into his karate class But I think it was like I want to do that. Like no one was picking on me. I wasn't the one that was like scared to go to school. In fact, in junior high, I was enjoying the experience because to me it was like a movie. Like every cliche I had seen in movies, I was experiencing. So like the first time that someone tried to take my lunch money, I laughed hysterically because I thought that was ridiculous. Like I've seen that in movies. And this kid, I was in the lunch line, was trying to, he literally is like, give me your lunch money. And I was like, whoa, this is so funny. And I start laughing and he thinks I'm ridiculous and he walks away. But I'm laughing because I couldn't believe it. It's like just like the movies.
You didn't give him the reaction that he wanted. But there are a lot of martial artists. For example, Stamp Fairtex, one of the top Muay Thai MMA fighters out of Thailand, or George St. Pierre, who grew up bullied and they turned to martial arts, gained that confidence, gained that courage, and was able to go through life through a different lens, and with maybe better posture, and all that. Is this what you're saying? I mean, training out of fear and then gaining that discipline, and then realizing your own self-worth, for lack of better words.
I think so. I think it's a closer way of thinking about this assessment. So I stated like I was 13 the first time I went into a formal martial art class. And I didn't enter it because my junior high was tough and I was getting bullied. I entered it because I was a huge Bruce Lee fan and because one of my buddies was doing martial arts and I had seen him do something that I thought was cool. But I can't remember if I saw him do those crazy moves before or after I went to the first karate class. So it's kind of like I'm trying to say I went in without any fear and without me saying I want to be able to defend myself. I didn't say that. I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. But while I was there, as I went through, let's say being 13, then being 18, and I didn't do it like in high school, like between 16 and 18, I didn't train. And I think when I was like 20, I was in college and I started picking up like other stuff like taekwondo or a judo class here and there. And then when I was in college, I found Shotokan, and I remembered it was so close to the Okinawan style that I started training there. But along the way, I kept hearing this thing. It's like you want to train martial arts because you want to learn how to defend yourself because the world is so dangerous. It's so tough. And that's what I mean that like I I remember that being through all my classes. And I don't know if I don't know how I feel about it. I feel a little bit kind of confused because I learned to see the martial arts space as not a place where all of us who were scared met. Even though I don't want to sound like someone that says if you were scared and that's why you went to martial arts, there's nothing wrong with you. What I'm saying is that I don't know if that's the core of who's there. Or maybe it is. I don't know. I'm just thinking because like when I see martial arts being sold to like women, you should learn because it's a dangerous world. Yes, that's one. But martial arts, it's a very great space to build relationships with people that are healthy, physically and emotionally. So that's another rhetoric that I would be like, if I had my own dojo, I wouldn't be telling you come to here because I'm going to give you skill sets to defend yourself. I was like, no, come here because we're good people. It's good for your body, good for your mind. You're going to get stronger in ways that are not necessarily simply about defending yourself. And I think those are the people that I've met. Most of the people that I've met are there. They're like, this is a great place. I want to come back. And but I've also met people that are there because they had a traumatic experience and they want to do something about that. Which I think there's definitely, I don't want to sound like that's not a place for you. I think that's equally, I was only saying, is there a difference between someone who enters martial arts out of fear versus someone who enters it for another reason? And then even more, is there a difference of someone that continues to train throughout their life out of fear? Because some of us keep that fear forever.
Well, George St. Pierre said that he was afraid at every fight. He said he was afraid and he was fearful, but I mean that's one person, and he did overcome those obstacles mentally to be one of the best of all time. But I think at least my experience or my perspective is that people who train out of fear, wanting protection from them for themselves, will gain, hopefully, if they're at the right gym or dojo or club, will gain those insights and that lifestyle, that healthy lifestyle. I want to say I joined because I wanted to for self defense mainly, and because I always wanted to. But part of it was the main driving force was for self defense. But after a couple lessons, I realized, wow, this is great. It's addicting. I love stepping into a space and just learning how to move my body and hit stuff. It felt so good just hitting stuff. Like I miss hitting stuff in a healthy way. And so I think, ideally, if someone was to go into a gym to train out of fear, to defend themselves from bullies and so forth, will find that healthy discipline and lifestyle and turn their lives into a better thing.
I agree. I think there's something about what you said that, like, it doesn't matter what led you to go to the gym, the dojo, or the training facility. Once you're there, you probably will find something more expansive than just a tool set to strike back. Because there are a lot of people that I've met that when I ask them, like, oh, why'd you come here? And they'll tell me a story. Like, oh, I got jumped 2 months ago and I realized that I needed to know how to fight. I was like, oh. And then if they ask me, I was like, no, I didn't. I didn't get jumped, 2 months ago. I just thought it was really good. But then at the same time, I would be lying if I didn't believe that the reason I train is not rooted in self-defense. I think there is a huge element of training of my continued interest in martial arts in general that is rooted in self-defense. But I don't know if I'm comfortable like using that as the reason why I do it, because I think about the idea that, like, it's too much. Like we dedicate so much time that is the self-defense model enough to justify? And I guess that's for each their own. Like for some of us that like would dedicate even more and that's all we need. But for me, it's like, no, I don't think I would dedicate so many years if it was simply self-defense, because ideally I don't ever want to use it for self-defense. I would be, yeah, I would be scared. I mean, like the few times that I remember fighting, there's only like one or two times that I felt, um, yeah, like I think every fight I ever had, I'm embarrassed about because it wasn't self defense. It was just
Mm-hmm.
things that could have been avoided. And then the one time that I felt threatened, I didn't have to do anything. I just literally had to redirect the conversation and move out of range.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, that's all I did. I said, no, thank you, verbally, and walked away. And the person was a little bit confused, which now did I tell you the story about being in junior high as 13? It was the same thing, basically. Like the person did not expect me to respond this way. And it gave me enough time to put at least like 15 feet apart from that person. And that's when I stopped and turned back to make sure that I was far And that person just stood there looking at me, and I was like, okay, what's gonna happen next? And then they walked away.
I think in a lot of situations like that, I think it is good to deflect and um, not be in conflict, and also not do something that the other person is expecting you to do. And so I think that's really positive and smart. That's what we should all do. I mean, that's what, I was taught at, the dojo I went to. The best fight is to not be in one. So yeah, not to be there. So I think that's positive. And I think that even though it also goes into the self-defense versus sport fighting, that we've been talking about, and that you know self-defense is self-defense. Someone tries to grab a typical person that's going to rob, say, is going to grab your bag. It's going to grab your bag, and the moves to def- deflect it, and move away and escape the situation. That is not necessarily smart to engage and be the superhero, because what if they have a weapon, and that becomes another situation? And so, um, so yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you talk about or the idea of who stays committed to a gym, to training. Let's not a gym, but to training. I feel like maybe like half the people kind of stay, at least from the people that I've seen at a previous gym that I went to. you know i I was there for over a year, and people come and go, seriously. And I was really surprised. I was like, oh, why, this is so fun. Or like there's like two brothers that went, and they kind of slowly dropped off. I'm like, dude, you got two brothers, you could do so many drills and practice, like with each other, but they chose not to. And that's okay. It's not, who am I to judge? But um it is interesting to see who. I don't know, is it weird for me to ask, like, oh, how come you joined the gym, to people that I just meet? Is it weird, Danny, or is it prying too much?
I don't think it is. That's what I've noticed a lot of people ask. Like, in most of the gyms I've been, that's a very common almost intake. There's this idea of like, well, tell me a little about yourself, where do you work? What school do you go to? And then what brings you here? Why'd you join this gym? And people tell a little story.
No one's ever asked me. No one's ever asked me, oh, how long you been training? How long? Why'd you start training? It seems like I'm always the one asking, but it could be me trying to be social and create that environment.
Well, I think also depends maybe where the setting, because you're doing Muay Thai, and I think in Muay Thai, when I started, yeah, I didn't get that question, but I did get it when I did Taekwondo, when I did Judo, um, I did what's the other one, Shotokan, Keto. Like
What
those
about
talks were always there. They were always there, very openly. People talking about like, if someone tries this to you, grabs you here, do that. It was never like, we're doing this for the competition next week in the sparring, match or whatever.
did people ask you that during jiu-jitsu in the
They did.
dojos you've been to? Yeah.
Yeah, and jiu-jitsu was very common.
Hmm.
And I think also because jiu-jitsu, I think now it's more sport based, and I probably get a lot of people kind of disagreeing with me, but I feel that jiu-jitsu has turned more and more into a sport based discipline. And that means that you're going to get less and less people kind of thinking like, this will save my life. They may start there, but the ones that I see like stay there, the lifers, they're the ones that compete. Because the ones that were like, the one that will say like, I got in a fight 2 months ago, they don't last. And this is a very like rough sample, so I stand very like confident that like I'm just kind of speculating, but I see a pattern that to this question of like, is there a difference between training out of fear and training out of something else. And by training out of fear, I mean that like you go to the martial art because something happened and you want to find a way to recoup something you lost. And I, even now that I said, I almost want to apologize because I sound like so like a jerk. But I think that there's something different there, because I think that when someone enters like that, like I'm just gonna paraphrase someone that says, I got jumped 2 months ago. And then I go, what happened? No, I was at a bar and someone broke a bottle in my head and they just kicked me. And this is something that is pretty close to what I heard. And everyone was like, well, you're in the right place, bro. You know, we're gonna work on that. And then he was like, thank you. And he was good, but he stopped coming.
Hmm. That's interesting. That's interesting. I hey, but sometimes people lose interest, or they, what, I got what I needed. Maybe he just needed a morale boost for a couple months, and hey, my cousin just started training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He lives in the Midwest. He's also an academic, and but he started, and he said that it's great. It's great for, he said his body aches after every session, and it's one of the healthiest things that he started doing, and he just started doing it. I think just out of curiosity and out of because he needed a physical activity. Yeah, and I think that's really great. Yeah. So I'm really proud. I'm really proud, and because there's somebody in my family that I can actually talk about martial arts with now.
And I think that's the part that is different, like about training for different reasons. I've been catching a lot of videos on self-defense, tactical combat, and the whole video is pretty much uh, instructing you how to save your life, and they're amazing. They're great. I mean, I can't speak enough of like most of the people I watch. They're great martial artists, and I was thinking like, yeah, but I don't think that's the bulk of us in the field, whatever it is, in our arts. Um, like the people that do Muay Thai and I met in the Muay Thai gym, most of them were really kind of cool amateur wannabes, not wannabes, hopefuls, you know, that like they were like, if I do this, I'll get a chance to probably train enough to compete. But I want to compete not like a hobby. I want to be those people that like has a record like 2-0, 3-0, you know. And I'm like, that's cool. Like, and I was training with them and I realized like, wow, they're coming like 3 times a week. Some of them are 4 or 5. They weren't in that gym out of fear. They weren't saying if someone beats me up, I'm gonna be able to do a roundhouse kick to their head. It was like, no, I want to be in the ring. Next month there's a inter dojo competition and I'm gonna sign up for it.
It's amazing. I mean, I feel really lucky to live in Southern California with so much access to so many gyms. Living in other places where you hear of people, who started 10, 20 years ago, oh, drive an hour, 2 hours just to train. And I'm like, wow, that's some serious devotion. I think that's more devotion out of, that's, at least for me at this point. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I think, but the sport and competition drive versus the self-defense drive, maybe the self-defense person may not have driven 2 hours. I at least see this is all assumption though. This is I'm speculating here. It's hard for me to say. I feel like I
Yeah.
am just speculating, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. um do you Yeah, so the sports stuff. But see, there's so many people that I see on the national, international stage that started off being bullied. They got into it for to feel better, and then it just snowballed, and then they're just good, and they're just you know world class. So many people, UFC, one championship, what have you.
I think there's something there, and I don't recall like meeting those people. You know, I'm thinking, like I said, like I'm a 13-year-old kid, and I'm doing something similar to what you're talking about. Like I would go during the week. I would go 3 times a week, like Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And Saturday, I was going with my best friend Javier at the time. We would grab our bikes and we would bike it through the city of LA to the dojo, which was inside a Salvation Army. And it was like, I don't even know. It doesn't make any sense. Like, I would never want my daughter biking through the city of LA nowadays. But back in the day, it was 7:30 in the morning. We would like get our little bikes, make sure it had air, get our little chain and lock, our duffel bags, and bike it. You know,
That's straight out of a movie, man. That's super cool. I can just see it. You see it. Two kids going to the dojo in the morning. Like, man.
but when we talked about like who we were little kids. Like I was in the kids class. I think the oldest one was probably like 16. I remember he was a brown belt. And to me, he was like the coolest dude ever because he was a brown belt and he was 16, so he was already in high school and he would do the warm-ups and then the teacher would come and do the class. And we didn't have that idea of like getting bullied, like we weren't the kids that were like, oh, we got bullied and now why we're here. I mean, that's why we're here. I think what I'm saying is like there's something interesting about the rhetoric or the narrative that if you're getting bullied, go take a martial art class, which yes, do that. But I wonder if it is one of those things we say, but we're composed of a larger demographic. Like we're not all the ones that got bullied. And I'm honest, like I was the smallest kid forever. I think I'm supposed the smallest person in my dojo because I'm like 5'6", 5'8", maybe. I don't know. I was always the smallest, but that wasn't why I was there. I wasn't there because I need a confidence boost or I need a security in case someone jumped me. Um, and I didn't meet them. Maybe people kept it quiet. I don't know.
I mean, I wasn't bullied, but going into martial arts definitely boosted my confidence, and I walk different, literally walk different. Um, I have a better, center of gravity, I think, when I walk now. So, but but yeah, I think there's always, I think that has to be it. Even if somebody wasn't bullied. That martial arts gives a great confidence boost. That's just me, and I'll put money down on it.
I think you're on it. I think you're on it because what I was posing at the beginning of this conversation as a question was, is there a difference between training out of fear or some other format? And I struggled. I think I was very clumsy and still am clumsy because I don't think I really understand how to convey what I think I see. Um, because part of the thing that I'm catching is when I watch those videos, I spend a lot of time more than I should, like watching people like that are like ex-military tell you how to disarm someone, which I would.
Cool.
I like my teacher was better. He's like, if there's a gun, give them your wallet. If there's a knife, run. You know, like those are your first choices. Second choice, there's something there, but like don't ever engage. Like if they have a gun, give them your wallet, and if they have a knife, run, because like that's distance. They unless they are able to throw that knife, but you'd run. And I really appreciate that logic because he was one. I appreciate because when the one I'm paraphrasing is we were little kids and he was taking care of us. He said, like, whatever I'm teaching you, I don't want you ever to get hurt because you think you can handle it, you know? And even as adults, I think a lot of teachers that are really honest should say that. Like, if there's a gun, comply up to the limit. Obviously, there's things that you will want to fight for. But if it's like, give me your wallet, give me your car, give it, because that's what they would say. But aside from that, what you mentioned is that there is something about feeling that you've invested in scenarios. I think about like the ways that when we were doing karate, we would, I don't know if it was good or bad, but we would simulate like disarming a knife, or if someone had a knife, to your side. Now it doesn't make any sense. Like a knife to your side already, it's too late. If someone's like holding you with, you can feel the blade on your ribs. I don't know if I'm gonna do the disarming. But maybe beforehand, maybe I have a chance before that happens.
So do you think we talked enough about the idea of training out of fear, comparing it to training out of, discipline and so on? I mean, do you think, are you satisfied with the points that we touched on?
I feel that I was very clumsy. In fact, I wish that we were able to maybe revisit this conversation, because I think there's something there, and maybe it's just me. Uh, because I feel there's a difference. There's something different with like asking someone to do this martial art with you because it will protect you, which is true, but also it's different if that's all you can offer them.
With that said, this has been the Reroll Multiple Martial Arts podcast, where we explore the intersections of martial arts, society, and culture. Until next time, peace.